A common question I get from other PTO volunteers and leaders is whether or not teachers can have a role in the PTO or on the PTO. Like, can they have a position? Can they be elected to an office? Can they be appointed as a committee chair? I'm Christina Heideck. I am a PTO and family engagement expert. Let's get into the details about that today, because this is a super common question and I definitely have a very strong opinion about it. And so we're going to cut right to the chase. Like, some people think, well, no, the teachers cannot and should not be involved because they have conflict of interest, like just because they work at the school and the PTO is working in the school. It's just not appropriate. Well, you as parents have kids in the school, so don't you have a conflict of interest as well? I think that everyone has a conflict of interest to a certain extent, and so it is silly to exclude someone who might be willing to step up. Teachers have a unique perspective that parents, unless they are educators, really don't have, and unless they are educators in the same school where they are serving as a PTO volunteer, they really don't get all of the nuances and the details and the specifics of the needs, the procedures, the culture of the school. And so having a teacher who can be part of the PTO leadership team and speak to some of those things, and maybe they're not like on the forefront talking about it, but maybe they're just casually bringing things up or making small suggestions, that can be super, super helpful. In my experience, I have never had a teacher involved in a leadership position where they have taken advantage of the situation. Now, I have totally heard from other PTO leaders who've had the exact opposite experience, and I'm sorry for that. It comes down to the individual personality of the teacher and if they know how to work well with others. I mean, some people are a total pain in the patootie to work with, right? Whether they're a teacher or not, that's not really germane to the conversation about that. There are definitely some roles that are more appropriate for a teacher and some that are definitely not as appropriate. So the first one that is really not appropriate, I don't think teachers should be presidents of PTOs. Now, I think if you were the only person who is willing to step up, that they should do so temporarily, but they should be actively working to get parents involved, actively working. And as soon as there is a parent who is willing to step up, they should hand that over. The primary drive of PTOs should really be coming from parents. I really believe that PTOs are like awesome organizations and capable of so much, but the primary drivers of action always should be easy for me to say. The primary drivers of action for PTOs should always be the parents, supported by the teachers and the principal and other school leaders. So the other role that I don't feel it's appropriate for teachers to serve on, and this one is kind of like a well, duh kind of moment, is the teacher grant committee. Like, for serious, like, you can't not argue that there isn't an inherent conflict of interest for teachers to be serving on that committee. And it's really not necessary for them to serve on that committee because I'm sure there are a ton of other people who are willing to serve. Their participation really isn't needed and they can be used in other places. So let's talk about some places. So we've talked about president and teacher grant committee, total no-go. But this doesn't mean that there aren't roles that are perfect for teachers. The first one is the treasurer role. Now, okay, hear me out on this one. Treasurers don't get to control where the money is going. They do not get to decide whether Project A is funded or Project B is funded. That is for the entire PTO to decide. The treasurer is just making the group's wishes happen. They're reporting on, like, just giving a monthly status report of the bank account. That is essentially what a treasurer's report is. They're talking about what money came in, what money was spent, what checks remain outstanding, like kind of just give a quick snapshot of the financial position of the group. But they don't really ultimately have any control, like sole control. And in fact, I think they actually might be more careful in that position because their actual job, their for reals job, will be on the line if they screw up. And if they steal money, oh boy, well then they're totally fired too, and they're hosed in like a multitude of ways. So I don't think that that is a problematic position for teachers to hold. I hope this helps to clarify the issue, and that if you have a teacher who is willing to step up and get involved in a leadership position, that you should be welcoming them. There are definitely some very appropriate roles, pretty much anything other than president and the teacher grant committee, for them to meaningfully serve and be involved, and that you should welcome it, embrace it, and ask for as much as you can get, because they're only going to add a perspective that you really can't get in any other place. And it is so wonderful to have their involvement. So I hope this has been super helpful for you, and that you will join me for my next video.